Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Knox Makers. It's Tuesday, and that means it's time for show and share. We get together here in the classroom every Tuesday since forever to show off projects that we've been working on, successful projects, failed projects, projects that are completely stalled out. Whatever you're working on, we're excited to see it. And we've got several folks who've signed up to share with us today, beginning with Victor, who has a 3D diffuser to share.
All right. Let's see if I can get this to work today, since it did not. Man, my Wi-Fi is not cooperating. This is what it's supposed to look like. And what I'm actually going to talk a little bit about is, I'm not sure why it's not downloading again, but anyway, what I want to talk about a little bit is like how I failed to make this and how I hurt myself in the process of making this. So the idea was that I have these LED light kits. Some of them cycle around and they're a little grid and whatnot. And I wanted to make something that instead of it just looking like a bunch of LEDs, it made some sort of weird pattern. So I needed something to diffuse it. And I didn't want to use like wax paper or whatever, gauze or something like that. So I went into Tinkercad and I made this pattern. And the reason why, these are a bunch of little hexagons that are all at slight angles. The reason for that is that in a 3D printer, I'm taking advantage of the fact that it will do that sort of stair step thing, sort of plateauing, because it's building layer by layer. So each one of these would have a bunch of little ridges, which would then further diffuse any light that's passing through them. That was the theory anyway. And I was, because I hate waiting for things, I was impatient and I thought, hey, I've got some acrylic. What if I made a mold instead of just printing this in transparent PLA, which any sane human being would do? So I made the inverse of this, and I made a little mold. And this is kind of what happened. If you know anything about epoxy resin, epoxy resin and PLA, they sort of chemically bond. I even put like, mold releaser and all this kind of thing in there. And maybe if I put like oil in there, like Wesson oil or something like that, it might have come out. These cracks are actually from where I tried to put paper clips in to see if it would actually I'd be able to lift it out, right? And the only thing I managed to be able to do was jab my thumb. And if anybody's blood sensitive, please don't look at this next slide, because that's my blood now forever embedded in the thing. Yeah, that's hard to see there, but I've got it here with me if anybody wants to play with it. Oh, look, will it actually play this time? Nope. Oh, well. So it actually, oh, there it goes. Yay. Finally. So you can kind of see, it looks a lot redder in person because they're all red LEDs, but what you're actually seeing, however, is the 3D prints. I ended up saying, okay, I'm going to go buy the transparent PLA and just do this like an adult and make that. However, and this is what it looks like in the little film that I'm shooting. This is sort of in context, right? So it looks like it's a part of this thing, which is just one of those like LED cloud things that some YouTubers put in, like the background. It makes it look like a lit up cloud or whatever. Of course, I'm using it for sort of different purposes, but this is like our mad scientist lab. It's one of the pieces in their lab. So I had another kit that had red and green. And what's interesting is that I ended up making that inverted mold. And I'm like, okay, this doesn't work. So I used the positive then to make a silicone mold. And then I poured epoxy in that. But the interesting thing was that was too clear. So first I had one that was chemically bonded. I even used a heat gun. You can kind of see where I was trying to peel it back and just melt the PLA off of it. It was not coming off, and it's still here. Here we go. So this is the thing that hurt me. And you can see that I really tried hard to get this thing off of here, but it is forever stuck. So I made this, which is a positive, and I found some stuff. I had no idea that you could make your own silicone molds at home from just two compounds, like a epoxy, basically. And so I put this on there, and of course forgot that this will float. So then I had to put a stick on it. And so there's a tiny little hole in the rubber mold, in the silicone mold, but doesn't matter because epoxy is so viscous that it wouldn't get through there. So problem solved. And I ended up with something that's fairly diffuse like that, like you just saw over here. Works great, looks awesome, especially in context. However, I had already created, and here's my silicone mold, and you can see that there's a little, you might be able to see a little bit that there's a little hole in there right there, which, believe it or not, the epoxy does not go through. So that was fun to make, and it did carry through the little stair stepping. But what's interesting is that that epoxy is so clear that even with that stair stepping, it's still very clear. But I had this other kit, and there you can see the epoxy mold with bubbles, which is always fun. But I didn't care. This is quick and dirty, and if you know anything about kind of like how they do movie sets and whatnot, the further in the background and the more stuff that's around it, the more you can get away with. This is literally a box from Spark Fun that I've painted, and I had a leftover plastic ring from another 3D print that I made, and so I ended up making this guy. And there you can actually see the 3D, you can see the stuff through that, and here I'll show you what it looks like lit up. There we go.
Oh, goodness, hold it up.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, this one has no blood on it. This is the one that's a biohazard. But yeah, so this is going to work great. It was a super easy kit to do other than, having to solder all these LEDs, which, by the way, thanks for the soldering class. That was awesome. However, the thing that I was not paying attention, and when I was clipping the LEDs, I actually cut into some of the circuit boards. So for a minute, I was afraid that this was just not going to work at all. But I still had probably about 100 things to solder onto the board. So I was like, well, I guess we'll find out when we find out. And sure enough, it does work. And it looks pretty good from a distance, right? Cool. Any questions? All right. Thanks, y'all. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So I wasn't here last week. I was pretty certain, maybe not the week before, but within the past couple of weeks, you used a vocabulary word about things that are in the background, little blocky things. What is that word?
Greebles.
Greebles. Literally, as I was driving home that night on NPR public radio, they were interviewing someone who was a set maker, and they used that word.
Oh.
What are the odds that within 2 hours I would hear this word?
That's awesome. Yay. Well, you learned something. All right, I'll pass this around so you guys can get a good look at it.
Very cool. Thank you, Victor. Next up, we have the inimitable Joe, who has brought a tensegrity table to share.
Hello everyone, I'm Joe. When I saw these designs, they're tensegrity designs, and I think it stands for tensile integrity. It's like a mashup of the words, but I thought they were really cool. It kind of gives it a sort of a weightless sort of an effect. So I wanted to try one out, and I was thinking about different designs and such, and this one's kind of like just a prototype so I could learn how it actually really goes. But it turned out really well. Basically, everything sort of rides on this chain. Oh, it's not on the video? Is that tall enough, Billy? Cool. Hello, Internet. But everything kind of rides on this one chain. This is really what gives it all of its strength. These are really just balancing chains, but it'll really take a lot of weight. It's not going to go anywhere. And but yeah, I kind of liked it because the metal that we used, or I used, was sort of not in the best shape. You can kind of see that, you can sort of restore steel. Even though it's a little bit messed up, you can still work with it, you can repair it, you can make it good again. I just kind of ground off all that rust, got rid of the old welds on there and ground it all smooth, and kind of repurposed all of that channel, or the tubing. Those were my angles to make these angles here on the tips. Kind of cut them all out like that. You can see the two pieces separating there. And then I took that out and just folded up that last end part. I liked it because the angles sort of all matched, like the angles on this sort of matched that, but yeah. And then I did a very unnecessary step. Instead of just welding the chain, which I kind of don't like to do a lot of times, chain material, maybe doesn't make the best weldable material. So I cut this keyhole slot out, and I put the chains inside, and then I welded back around it so that it would fill the hole in and kind of just trap the chain link inside, so that the chain wasn't really the weld wasn't what was holding it anymore. It's just that trapped chain link inside. I don't know if it was really necessary. Next time I'll probably just weld the darn chain. But that was kind of the pictures that I took of the process and the table. Yeah.
Can you stand on it?
You could, yeah. Yeah, it kind of wobble. Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll sit on it. Depending on your balance, but,
What's the surface?
I used stainless, this stainless mesh stuff that we have. And so then when I painted the table, the stainless kind of contrasted with it. But yeah.
So I assume there's a tensioning adjustment for the center hole?
There is, yeah, down on the bottom. That's the tensioner there. I kind of made a sort of a long eye bolt and then just use that as the tensioner.
I must admit, it hurts my brain to think which way tensions it. If you shorten the center chain, that lifts the top.
It lifts the top and it brings these taut.
Hurts to think that through, though.
That's why when I saw this design, I'm like, I got to try something like this. This is cool. But, okay. Right on. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Beautifully counterintuitive. Thank you. Next up, we've got Andrew, who has brought another bike rack to show us.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm back after a long hiatus. One of the resident bike nerds here at Knox Makers. So over the past year and a half or so, I've for some reason gotten into making custom bike racks. I've made probably about 6 of these now, and 2 of which are currently on one of the bikes that is owned by one of my friends, and it's making its way across the country right now, which is pretty cool in my opinion. So anyway, a rack starts out as just a long, straight piece of, in my world, 3/8 chromoly tubing, and then I bend it into, this is a deck for a rack, right? So, wow, I should probably zoom out. Is that the button? That's not the button. All right, so you have your rack deck here, and that's, it's a rectangle, cool, okay. And from there, I'll show you a few other designs that I've made. This is one of the ones that's on its way across the country. You can kind of see that. You get the idea, I guess. But, so this just kind of has a, you can see it's just the rectangle deck up here with the crossbar. I wish you could see that a little bit better. Yeah, it kind of gets it. You can kind of see the crossbar up there, right in that region. So that does its job, but today, on my first day back here, I've had this idea in my head that I wanted to try for a very long time. So with my little metal bender, I finally figured out, after about two to 3 hours worth of work, finally figured out how to do a different crossbar, which is just a closed loop, and it was unbelievably frustrating to make. So, as this rack evolves, it will look something to the effect of that, right? And you can get pretty creative with designs like this. Bear with me here, I have to scroll through my phone a little bit to find kind of an inspiration for it. One of my favorite bike frame builders makes these forks for bikes, where he takes his brazing and kind of shapes his fillets. That's that kind of brassy, silvery looking shape. And it kind of just, I don't know how to describe it. It makes it look swoopy, for lack of a better term. I don't know if it really conveys through that picture. But with my rack, that is work in progress here, I plan to fill here, 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 and here with brass, and I will shape it just kind of to create that smooth contour. So as this evolves, I'll probably show it again, and hopefully I don't bore you. But I'm really, really excited about this one. This one is probably going to be kind of a showpiece. And yeah, it's, I don't know, it's just, for some reason, this has turned into my artistic medium, and it's been a lot of fun, and it's something not a lot of people seem to, A, have an interest in, and B, really understand what goes into. So I really like showing people, A, how to braze these things together using brass. I've taught a few brazing classes here, and also just kind of showing the public how bikes and bike components are made. It's just kind of a fun thing for me to show and learn along the way. So yeah, that's my art. All right, Russell, I saw you first.
How did you actually bend that into the closed loop?
I forgot to bring it out. I have pipe and tube fitters use these, well, little benders. It's basically two arms with a, for lack of a better term, bending head, and there are wheels on that that hold the shape of the tube in perfect roundness as you bend it around an arc. And what was so hard about this, wow, I have to move backwards. What was so hard about this is that bender takes up space. So when you do one of these arcs, you have to pivot this so you don't hit the bender when you're doing the second 180-degree bend. So it was kind of almost a coil when I had the bends complete, and then I had to sit there in the vise and figure out how I need to bend it back and forth with my hands or some sort of pry bar. And at that point, I had to add a little splice in, I'll pass this around so you can see it. In the middle here, there's another piece of smaller diameter tubing inside the inner diameter of this main, for lack of a better term, main tube. And that's how it's held together. There's melted brass in there holding it together. That's the brazing. So, yeah, if any of you are interested after this, ask me and I'll show you the bender. It's a pretty simple machine, but there's a learning curve. So, any other questions? Did I see? Okay. All right. Well, thanks for entertaining my presence.
Andrew, I love what you said about that being your art. I feel like that's what we see here every Tuesday is all of our community members showing their artistic expression in all these unconventional mediums. I think it's marvelous. If y'all will pardon my self-indulgence, I actually would like to show you a project that I made recently. As you know, I'm a tremendous Halloween nerd, and this is, of course, my time of year, so I'm pretty excited about life right now. And something I've been wanting to do for the last several years was add to my substantial cemetery a cemetery fence. which is a kind of a traditional thing for home haunting nerds to want to do. This is the offering that you get at Spirit Halloween right now. I calculated that to make about 90 feet of fence would have cost $550 plus tax at Spirit, and it would have been floppy plastic that was about 2.5 feet tall. So not satisfactory. The conventional way for home haunters to make their own cemetery fences is mostly out of like PVC pipe, a huge amount of it, because it's so easy to work with and it's so cheap, except it's not cheap anymore. I did the math, and you could just almost put up a fence for what it was going to cost me to build a stupid PVC fence. And so it was a crazy challenge trying to think, well, how can I make this thing for not a lot of money? And so what I wound up designing and building, this is a model that I made in OpenSCAD to sort of validate the design. It's made entirely out of furring strips, which is the cheapest wood I could find. So I bought hundreds of furring strips like a lunatic. And the furring strips then, this is a prototype that I made out of those. It's not much of a photograph, but the furring strips that go across have been rip cut and then little slots routed through them to allow the half furring strips to then vertically pass through them. And of course it's all glued together. And then I bought finials like you would put on a proper fence. And that's what you see at the top is that plastic finial there. You can get those for something like $0.25 a piece. I don't remember the exact numbers, but to make this 8-foot long section of 4-foot fence was something like $7 or $10, I guess. And so now I just needed to do it a lot, right? And so, oh, there it is painted. I just painted it black to see what it looked like. I felt like it was reasonably passable. So I had to rip a lot of furring strips in a totally OSHA compliant fashion, I assure you. The ones that are taped up there are ones that I've like paired up because they were the nicest ones, and I was gonna like glue them back together to become the horizontals later. And it was a little bit of like a personal upgrade in approach because I'm obviously no woodworker, but I made a crosscut sled for my saw, huzzah, and made like a little notchy thing so that, you know, you make the notch and then you go over here to the thing and make the next notch. So I'd have to measure anything, which was amazing. And I also made my first wood jig. I've never done that before, but I found that trying to square it up and get everything measured was miserable. So I decided to do it once and then use the jig, you know. So there you go. And as far as the finials go, you remember I too had a miserable experience with molding and casting. And I ran out of time like a fool because I'm bad at that. And so I just punted. I bought some cheap blow mold skulls on the internet, and here I'm hot gluing them in a very classy fashion to these little segments of PVC pipe. And the idea is that where the two fence sections meet, you know, you have two verticals right next to each other. So then I just like pop that PVC pipe over them, and it both holds them together and makes it kind of look like one piece, and also holds the skull up, so it looks kind of boss. And so there it is in my graveyard, and I think it looks pretty dope. So there you go. I'm there. That is the last of our shares that we have scheduled. Did anybody bring something but not get to sign up? Oh, question? Yeah.
It's me.
Sure.
So could you show the wood jig? Because looking at those clamps, I couldn't quite figure out what was blocking and how it was held.
I don't pretend that any of this is remotely sensible. I'm not sure if I've made this clear. I had no idea what I was doing. Still don't. But basically there are little blocks here and here that hold the whole thing up to make room for all the clamps.
Is there a U-channel in that block?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Use the same little setup to make those U-channels so you could drop right in there, and then just made giant holes through it vertically so the clamps could hold it down. So it made the whole business flat-ish. Of course, the downside is that furring strips are the worst wood that's available to humankind, but it kind of was working to my advantage, I think, because when you glue it together and it's all curvy, it looks like an old busted fence, and it actually looks way cool. So I was not dissatisfied with that. Were there any other questions? Yes? Oh, great, yeah. Please do. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I just wanted to share a little decoration I made this week that I thought you might like to see. Okay. See if I can. Oh, that's wrong. Ta-da! Okay. So let me go back. Okay, so last year I wanted to make a wreath for our octagonal window on our home, and I made it out of empty PLA spools, obviously. Just zip tied the heck out of it. Just zip tied everywhere until, you know, because it held its shape pretty rigidly, kind of perfectly. And then just wrap some lights around it, Christmas lights around it, and put some, what was I going to say? Oh, hung it with a chain. So this year I wanted to see if I could get my phone to work. Sorry. There. Okay, so that's about the scale of it there, if you can see that. So poster board, I went to make this window silhouette out of poster board. I could only find smallish ones at Walmart, so I'd kind of Gorilla Glue the whole design there, but it kind of worked out. And that's from the inside. And I was going for a cat, and that's just ways to decorate. There's my cat. There he is. He's the, whoops. He's the inspiration. But anyway, so that's kind of how it looks, if you can tell. So you get these great big glowy eyes, and it looks like a cat to me. Does it look like a cat to you? Okay. Anyway, so that's just a fun little cheap project. Any questions? Yeah.
So the lights in the eyes, is that from your room, or is that?
Yeah, that's from the inside with, you know, just with the lights on at night. So.
And did you put yellow film on it?
No, I didn't. I don't know if it's because of the color of our walls or what, but it's just perfect. Anything else? Okay, thanks, guys.
Bonus points for Halloween projecting. Anybody else got anything they want to share this evening? Yes, ma'am.
Two years ago, I started making costumes for my 4-year-old grandson. So I thought I'd start by showing you the first costume I made for him. Now, this is not him, but his cousin wearing it, because it's now been handed down and he's become too old for that. So that was the first costume. Oh, he was terrified of the oxygen tanks, by the way. Yeah, that was not him at all. The next year, I took out patterns and I said, well, what do you want to be? And he kept pointing at the witch, and he said, the ghost. And I said, the witch? No, the ghost. So we decided he was a ghost witch, and this is him going, boo, to the neighborhood. Okay, so he sent me a picture of what he wanted to be this year, and I started to make it. And I've been sharing along the way. Yeah, the past has been, can you guess? I'll rehash some of it for those of you who haven't been here for the other shares. So I ended up using this pattern. Wow, that's loud. For the hood and for the multiple layers. As you can see, this is my cat helping me. And one of the shares was the actual pattern. I had my 17-year-old grandson show it, and it was could have fit him, actually. The white cards are where the small measurements are. I also talked about how I used my heat pins that you use for quilting, because they said that with the heat pin, you just put an iron on it and it disappears, and that is indeed true. The problem is, if it's exposed to cold, the ink will come back. So I decided not to use it for that at all, but I thought, I can trace around the pattern and do it. And that's what I did. The problem came in when I had my marks on the hood, and I pressed the seam down, that removed my marks for the seams. So I had to kind of wing it as we went along. I talked about the netting and how netting is just, it's really, you don't put a pin in netting, you have to use something else to help you hold it. But that did indeed work. It went together. I had him put it on for size. So in addition to it being a very short pattern, I had to cut this much more off the bottom for him, so it wouldn't go below his toes, and that much off the sleeve. All right, so then, all right, now I'm ready. Oh, yes, I decided to also embellish it with creepy cloth. Do any of you know what creepy cloth is? I bet Isaac does, yeah. Okay, so it's like a mesh fabric, and it's, yeah, I don't know what else to call it. It just kind of drapes and hangs in it. It has no real substance. It's about a thread every 1/4 of an inch, if you will. So creepy cloth. So I did that as the top hood. So that piece went to here. Then the netting went to mid-thigh, and then this fabric went to the floor. But it wasn't the look that he had wanted. So I had to fix it. They asked me, he saw this, and he said, "Grammy, what's that?" And I said, "Well, that's where I had to make your costume spooky. You said you wanted it spooky this year." Okay, all right, we got that. So I did quite a bit of that. So it was finally time for the reveal. I'll also mention that I went to Dollar Tree. That has got to be like my favorite store of all time. This was the reveal. He's just super excited. He really likes it. And then he got up closer, and I moved it, and he ran to the other side of that room. Turns out he is terrified of it. He will not put it on. I don't have a picture of him in it. He said he would put it on for Halloween, so maybe next week I'll have a live photo. But I want to show you what I ended up with. He is 4. A little over the mark, yeah. Yeah, he sent me a photo. And he said, and before I made it, I said, "Are you sure?" And then we waited a long time. And I said, "Are you sure that's what you want?" And he said, "Yes, Grammy, that is what I want." That's what I started with. Yeah, I didn't have the noise to go with it, and I didn't have the lock, but I think it was okay. Yeah. All right, any other questions? Oh.
Is Granny going to be paying for the sessions he's going to need later?
Well, I showed you the picture of the little girl, and they had told me, his parents told me that they took the costume down into their bedroom, and I thought it was because the little girl had seen it. No, it's hidden in their closet, so he can't see it. So yeah, but yet he loves Jack the Skeleton, right? He was helping Daddy put that up over the weekend, so I don't get it. Maybe that skeleton mask was just too much. When I did take it down, it's not just with elastic, but a hood, and he eventually did touch it. That's where he touched, right there. And he seemed to be okay, but no, he just, no. And then I almost had him convinced to put it on because he was telling me that the back of it was not scary. Cool. then maybe you can put it on and just take a picture of the back of it. But he saw Papa in the background going, and he said, no, Grammy, that's silly. Thanks, Papa. And you can have your floor back. Another
It sounds like a shining endorsement of your artistry to me. Anyone else got a share this evening before we proceed? No? Okay. Just a couple of announcements to share with you. We have a few classes and events happening imminently. First among them tomorrow, which will be Wednesday, we have a new member onboarding session starting at 7 p.m. If you are in the process of becoming a member, if you're thinking about becoming a member, or if you're already a member and you just want to meet all the new folks, it's a cool place to be, and it's actually required for membership. So we do that twice a month, and tomorrow it's happening at 7, so come hang out with us. And then Thursday, the following night at 6:30 p.m., we've got a FreeCAD 101 class. FreeCAD is a free and open source 3D modeling software. We have been begging and groveling for somebody to teach it for a couple of years, and the most excellent Rhubarb has stepped up to do so. And I have taken his class. It is marvelous. I endorse it. So there are actually tickets, I believe, still available. And so sign up for that and come hang out with Rhubarb at 6:30 on Thursday. Or if not, come hang out with Rhubarb at 1 p.m. on Sunday, which is the second opportunity that you'll have. And you may never have another one, so come do it, because for the moment, he's doing it, and it's amazing. Also, I wanted to remind you that we have an ongoing laser cutting fundraiser right now. If you're not aware, John Dale is working to add new capacity to that zone. It is a second laser for us to use. It's a different kind of laser, a fiber laser, which can actually etch and cut metals and other materials. It's a really fancy thing that we've wanted to do for a long time. The total fundraising goal is about, well, it's just more than $4,600, and we are within $250 of that goal. So we need just a little bit more. So if you can find any spare change in your sofa or any such thing, give it to John Dale, and I'm sure that he will not misspend it in any way.
How do they donate to this?
I don't know. How do they donate to this, Sue?
If you go to the laser cutting channel, we have a link there that you can go and do a checkout. It'll go directly to the
So it happens through the Knox Makers shopping cart. There is a link on the Mattermost channel for laser cutting, but you can also just slip John Dale some cash. We have an outrageous number of new folks with us tonight. Welcome to you all. Thank you for being with us. If y'all have not already done so, please find somebody with a badge of some sort and get a tour. If you have any questions, ask us. Glad to have you here. Thanks for being with us. This concludes our program for the evening. We're going to go out in the workshop and make some weird stuff together. Thanks for being with us tonight.